gang. Welcome back to part two here on Freedom Formula with Michael Lush. For those of you that watched the first round, you know that this guy is genuinely excited about this process and really coming down to just show you a different way around money. If you didn't watch part one, go watch that. But here you're here for part two. We're gonna actually break down some math today. We're gonna make sure that on the other side of this, you can truly look at your mortgage, look at maybe some way you borrow money in general, just a little bit differently. The goal here is to really spark kind of that inquisitive nature. There's so much out there today, AI, Google, you can ask questions to. Go to replaceyouruniversity.com. There's calculators there. I've played with them multiple times, just showing friends at party here on a Friday night. I'm here up 10:30, everybody's partying. I'm like, guys, you got to see this thing. Like, it's so cool. And like, I swear, like those are the conversations I have. But again, you forever changed the way that I've looked at money, and I feel like I look at money in a good way. But it was one of those new things for me a year and a half ago, and I'm truly excited to be able to share this as well. So, Michael, again, appreciate you coming back on for part two here. And I think to kind of tip this off, man, when I got to meet you, the thing I really remember was your conversation around the interest rate. That's something that everybody always brings up when I show them something like, oh, but my interest rate on my mortgage is so low. I got it here. I refinance there versus the idea of rate of interest. And, I know your thing like the back of your hand, but I'd love to jump there. And then as we go, we'll go and just get people to learn the thing.
Yeah, it's something that we have grown to love and almost idolize, which is our interest rate. Especially if we refinanced in 2020 or 2021 and rates plummeted, it's like I got that 2.5, I got that 3.5, whatever it is. It's like, what does that represent to you? Tell me tangibly how that benefits you. Because one, it's a lie. You think that represents how much interest you're paying, and it's not. And I'll break that down here in a little bit. But why is it you're so proud of it? Like, can you go to the grocery store with your 3.5% interest rate and buy a carton of eggs? Can you take that interest rate and go buy a car or whatever it is? And no, it's not tangible. It's just a number to brag about to your friends, family, and neighbors. But do you really understand what it means? Because people, I used to ask people all the time, what is your rate of interest? Because that's what I'm most interested in. And they're like, well, it's 3.5%. I'm like, no. That's your interest rate. I need to know what your rate of interest is. Because again, the government forces these lenders to disclose it to you. So surely, you sign the document, you know what your rate of interest is. And what I was referring to, the government has now coined TIP, total interest percentage. What that is the real amount of interest that you're paying. So let me break it down for you. Interest rate dictates your payment. Time and balance dictates how much interest you will ultimately pay. So we know that, especially with today's interest rates, the tip is on average 100%. What that means is if you buy a home for $400,000, if you finance it for 30 years, you're going to pay $800,000 for it. If you stick with that one loan and pay it off. That's if you don't refinance ever in the future. Even if you refinance to a lower rate, you're still costing yourself more interest because you start the clock all over again. So, all right, so you got a $400,000 home that cost $800,000 if you kept that same loan. Now, can you tell me how that 3.5 or that really 100% tip would be like a 5.5% interest rate? So tell me how that 5.5% interest rate dictated 100% interest. And nobody can do the math. Nobody's ever tried. And quite frankly, here's the other thing. A lot of consumers never even paid attention to that document. Think about how we're advertised and how we're solicited to by these banks and lenders. What's the number one thing that they lead with? Interest rate. Why? It's the lowest number. It's the easiest number to sell. So that's what we've been indoctrinated now. We're 4 generations removed from the creation of the modern day mortgage. And that's how they just slowly changed our perception of money and make us think that it's a good thing. That it's like, I got this low rate when it's not really a low rate. So you can't do it mathematically, equate 5.5 to hundreds of thousands of dollars of interest without considering 2 aspects that are far more important: time and balance. All right. And again, the government coined the phrase TIP, total interest percentage. So at the closing table, your loan officer and your closer's like, yep, here's the payment I promise you. Yep, spot on, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for doing a good job. Okay, here's that interest rate. I know you were concerned about that and you wanted that 5.5. Here we go. We delivered. Man, that's awesome. Okay, all right. Closing costs, everybody pays closing costs. Yeah, you got this, title fees, all that. Third page, this is your APR. APR is always higher when you finance in closing costs. Everybody knows that. Tip, it's high. Anyways, flip over. It's just sign right here, flip over. That's essentially how 95% of the closings go. I remember closing on an investment property, and I asked the closer, I was like, what does that number mean? They had no clue. How do you get to that number? I mean, if the rate is this, how do I have that? They couldn't tell me. Well, maybe you should call your loan officer. I know the loan officer doesn't know. Nobody knows. So again, you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars of unnecessary interest that you otherwise didn't have to if you understood how it actually works. So again, that goes back to your point. It's rate of interest versus interest rate. Because, as a part-time real estate investor, I used to pound my chest of, okay, I bought a house for 350, and if I sold it for 450, I made what? 100 grand. No. How long did I finance it, and what was the terms of financing? That is a cost. So if I bought it for 350 and had that property for 10 years, I've already put more than 450,000 into not just the home, but also the interest to carry the debt. So if I don't sell it for more than that, then I don't make a profit. And people don't look at it. That's the other thing in other countries. That's the way they look at it. They'll look at it and like, okay, if we have to finance it this way, that $250,000 home financed over 30 years at a low interest rate of 4.25 is going to cost 460 some odd $1,000. And now they look at it through the lens of, well, is that going to be a $460,000 home? Probably not. Maybe never. Okay, then it's not worth buying. That's how they view it. As Americans, here's how we look at it. What's the rate that dictates the payment, and can that payment fit inside my monthly budget? And we ignore all the other terms because we don't care. We live month to month, paycheck to paycheck. So if we're making 10 grand and that fits inside of that threshold where we can afford this and still maybe go on a vacation once a year or maybe put groceries on the table and whatnot, then we're good to go. That's the way unfortunately, and obviously I'm a big advocate of an American. Actually, right here on my desk is good old Glory here, but unfortunately, that's just who we are, consumers.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why Trump knows this, and that's why he's in the Middle East and all this. He's like, look, I got you by the cojones because I've got what you don't have, which is the largest consuming economy in the world. We are the customer, and the customer's always, not always, but anyways.
Generally right. Generally.
So that's just essentially who we are at the core of us is we are consumers. And that's what we do is we consume debt as long as it fits inside of our monthly budget. But we don't take account for all the additional costs when it comes to financing. So to tie all that in, with our strategy, what we teach is to focus on that number. Okay, if you're going to buy a $350,000 house, yes, you're still going to pay interest to a third party that you don't own, which is the bank. But let's make that as small as possible. So instead of paying $700,000 for this $350,000 home, how about paying $400,000? So how about paying $50,000 of interest on $350,000 versus $350,000 on $350,000 borrowed? That's what we focus on. And we're capable of doing it without changing anyone's existing budget. Now, the biggest question that people have is, will this work for me? Don't know. And I hate to answer it that way, but here's where our core niche is people that are cash flow positive, which right off the bat eliminates most Americans. What I mean by cash flow positivity is you make more money than you spend. And how do I know that? Well, now we have raw data, but we also have COVID, right? 2020, when people got furloughed and the checks stopped coming in, what happened? Oh man, I need loans. I need idle loans. Even businesses needed this stuff, right? The checks stopped coming in. They were broke. And that's how most Americans live. We live paycheck to paycheck. Go a month without a paycheck. And if you can last a month, then you're probably telling me that you're cash flow positive. If you can't, then you got an issue with your budget. So I don't want to also make this sound like some kind of magical elixir that this solves everybody's problems, because it doesn't. That's the basics. Like Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey of the world, go and master your budget. Live on less than you earn. right? Just because you got a pay raise doesn't mean you need to go buy an Escalade or a Denali. And again, I'm guilty as charged. I
I'm
did it
guilty.
a
I'm
lot.
totally guilty as well. We all did it.
Yeah, yeah. So live inside of your means. If you are and you're cash flow positive, then I encourage you to explore the math, because it will blow your mind, because it's not asking you to sacrifice anything. It's not asking you to live on less. It's not asking you to reduce your expenses. It's not asking you to make more money. It's just changing what you understand about money, and who has more of a control and a relationship with that money than you do. I'll give you a good example. You put money in a checking account. Right now, if I ask 10 people, hey, you got money in a checking account, is that an asset or a liability? 10 out of 10 would tell me it's an asset. And it's not. It's a liability. In fact, the more you have in there, the more of a liability it is. And the reason being, right now, according to Go Banking Rate data, the average interest earned on a checking account is 0.17%. 0.17%. However, inflation, the historical inflation, we won't even talk about today's inflation or 4 years ago inflation. We won't get political with this. We'll just talk about average historical inflation is 3.3%. Now, even when I talk that, people don't quite understand. So let me just give it to you in layman's terms. You give me money, I'm going to give you 17 cents, right? But I'm going to charge you $3.30 to give you the 17 cents. Now, how much did you really make? You didn't make anything. You lost money. Okay. Go to a financial planner. Hey, I got this product. I'm going to put you in this product and you're going to earn 0.17%. I said 17 cents. 17 cents would actually be 17%. But anyways, you get my point. You're going to earn 0.17%. Now, unfortunately, the cost to put the money in there is going to be 3.3%. Now, if you're talking to a financial planner, they talk in rate of interest, right? What is your internal rate of interest? So can you guess what the internal rate of interest is to put your money into something that earns 0.17%, but the cost of putting it in there costs you 3.3%?
Trying to do math in my brain, see if I can keep up.
Here's the other thing. People will only take the difference between 3.3 and 0.17 and like, hey, it's 3.25, somewhere around there, or 3.15 or something like that. That's margin. And this is key, because this is how banks make so much money. Is they don't focus on the margin, they focus on the rate of return. Margin is, all right, I give you $4 and it turned into 8. The margin was 4, but what was the rate of return? 100%. 100% rate of return. If I give you $4, you turn into 8. That's 100. You doubled your money. It's 100% rate of return. But the margin was 4. So if it did that, you're like, only made $4. No, I made 100%. So if I make 100%, what does that mean? I need to give you $400. I need to give you 4,000. I need to give you 400,000. I need to give you 4 million, because if I'm an investor and I got prop money here, this is not real money. But if I'm a true investor, I've got an investor mindset, not a saver mindset. And that's a lot of people come to us. They have this saver mindset. You cannot save your way to prosperity. Okay, it just doesn't happen. All right, 83% of millionaires were made by one industry and one industry alone. What do you think that was? Real estate. Do you think they saved their way into buying real estate? No, you may save money for a down payment, but you eventually leverage to acquire more and more real estate to become millionaires or billionaires. But anyways, where was that? All right, so if I gave you $100 and you turned it into 2, that's a good deal, right? Okay, so remember that. That's a good deal. But if I gave you $200 and you turned it into 4, what's the better deal?
Same deal.
It's the same rate of return, but what's the better deal? The better deal is when I gave you 200, not 100, because I made $200. I didn't make $100. That's an investor mindset, not a saver mindset. So I'll spoiler alert. I'll tell you what the rate of return is. It's negative 1,841%. So by putting your money into a checking or savings account, your money is going backwards at a rate of 1,841%. So that's part of the problem right there. You're storing your money in this vessel that's not even keeping up with the cost of goods and services. And, the other myth out there is, inflation has come down. And they're like, great. So that means prices are coming down. No. Let me explain inflation to you. That means the rate in which the prices increase has slowed, but it is still increasing, right?
Always going up. It's never going backwards.
Yeah, right. For
Not
multiple
never, but
reasons.
rarely.
whether it's a supply chain or someone will argue tariffs, which that was egg on their face. The tariffs are actually starting to bring prices down. But the price of gas and all that stuff. Yes, so that inflation is the cost of goods and services are ever increasing, and it's also the overprinting of money. So if I know that's the problem, is there a vessel that I can bypass storing my money in a checking and savings account? Because when we store it in a checking and savings account, it makes us feel good. Why? Because it's liquid. Because if we need access to it, it's right there in the digital world. We got our debit card, we got checks, we got online bill pay, we got all that stuff, right? So it makes us feel good when it's in there because we got easy access to it. Nobody else controls it. But we're losing almost 2,000% rate of return on it. I mean, again, imagine talking to a financial planner and they put you into a program or a product that gave you a negative 1,841% rate of return. I mean, you're firing them. You're gone. Sorry, dude. I was expecting the minimum of 8% rate of return or 10. And that's the other thing about financial planners. I forget the exact number, but it's over 70% of financial planners are broke. They don't have any money to do what they're telling you to do with your money. It's all theory to them because of what they learned when they got their 65, 67, 6, and 7 of, yeah, this is what somebody who regulates all this stuff told us that this was a smart way to do money, but they haven't even put it into practice because they don't have any money to do it with themselves. But yet they're telling other people what to do. And then they'll do a podcast with me, and it shows how little they actually know about money, how it really works in the real world. So we have our checking and savings accounts because we feel good about it because it's liquid. But again, it has become a liability because we're losing money the longer it sits in there. You know, actually, let me bring it home with this one. All right, Stephen, if I gave you $300,000, you bury it, you put it in a tin can, you bury it in your backyard. 30 years from now, we go and dig up that tin can. What's it worth?
Same exact thing. $300,000 in cash. Assuming
170.
cash is a lot of assumptions. It's worth the same.
Yeah. Well, you do have $300,000 of cash, but what is the value of a dollar?
Man, in
Right.
30 years,
So
way less.
adjusted for inflation, it's 117. So that's essentially what we're doing with our money by putting it in a checking and savings account. Is it's eroding slowly, and we're big believers of everyone is an employer whether they like it or not. Because if you make money, your dollars are your employees. Now, as a good entrepreneur, as a good employer, you should make sure that your employees are actually doing their job. But if you're putting them in a checking and savings account, they're not only not doing their job, they've been dead. They're like those people that are 150 years old collecting Social Security. I mean, think about it. They're not only making you money, they're actually costing you money. And our dollars are our employees. So we got to be better stewards of it. And it's really simple. So we like it in checking and savings account because it's liquid, but could we bypass that? Is there any other product under the sun that will allow us to do it? Yes, it's called a line of credit, like a home equity line of credit. Especially now in the last 10 years, I started this 11, 12 years ago. So it's gotten a more sophisticated and more banks and credit unions are getting on board. They've gotten better in this digital world where you get a HELOC, you get a debit card associated with it, you get online bill pay, you get check writing capabilities, you get ATM capabilities. You have all the same tools and functions and features that you would inside of a checking account. But now when you put money into the HELOC, where does the dollars go first? Principal, then interest is calculated. So now you're actually getting a rate of return while it's staying there, or maybe not staying there. It's a place to store, it's a vessel to store your cash until you find a bigger opportunity somewhere else. So, let's say you got a HELOC rate of 5%. You put your money in there, you get a 5% rate of return instead of a negative 1,841% rate of return. And you still maintain 100% liquidity should you need it for bills, expenses, whatever else, opportunities in the future. So, in a nutshell, that's who we are, and that's what we teach, and we try to champion that message as much as possible. And there's other businesses underneath Replace University that teaches other financial topics, but Replace Your Mortgage is our bread and butter because it's a big demand, it's a big problem, and it solves a big problem. Hopefully, it solves it so much that I get on some type of bank hit list, in the future. That's when you've made it. Like, banks, they make a ton of money, and they're like, yeah, great. Let's just pay somebody 10 grand to go whack
Take
him.
this guy out. Well, you're
Yeah.
costing them millions and millions, so I think they'll pay more than 10 grand. It's one thing. One of the questions that you had asked back in that class was you have probably some cash available to you, whether it's in a checking and savings account, hidden under your mattress in a safe or some version thereof. And you said, why wouldn't you put it into your mortgage so that way you pay your house off more quickly? And the answer was simple on the other end, like, well, I can't get it back if I need to spend the money on something, right? So we like to have money in our checking and savings accounts because we can go spend it when we need to. Well, I know one of the points you made was on a line of credit. Well, if you need the money, you can go and actually do that. So just to kind of further kind of prove that point of
Yeah.
leveraging that mechanism, that container, going down that road. And I know you actually teach within the course a lot of like, that's a very basic thing. And we don't have to give everybody all the details. Otherwise we'll be here for hours, but I've been able to look in the back end of the course and it's like, hey, if you do this thing and this thing, and there's a way to go, hey, basic and shave off time and save money. There's a way to really go all in and shave off a lot of time and save a lot of money. And it really is determined based upon how much you want to dive in and how much ownership and control you want to take over your finances, which I would say it behoove most people to do that, but I know there can be a lot of work associated too.
Yeah, because some of the things that we talk about, which doesn't catch the public eye, I try to talk about it publicly as much as possible. But what you're alluding to is saving money is defensive, but again, we're liquid. So what's the offensive alternative to that? Because again, if we're liquid, you know, I got a good example. What's her name? Sorensen, BB Sorensen. So I got a client that in 3-4 years, let's just say 4 to be conservative. I think it was a little less than 4. She not only paid off her house, she paid off 3 investment properties in 4 years. Now, how did she do that? She actually paid off her house first, then re-leveraged, because it's a line of credit, it's liquid, right? Re-leveraged, bought investment properties, and investment properties are designed to do what? Make money. If you buy a property that doesn't make money, you're not a real estate investor. You're a real estate loser. So yeah, you make more money. Well, if you make more money on top of the money you were already making, what do you think happens? The debt goes down faster. So she was able to accomplish this in 4 years because she was looking at not just defense, but how can I also play offense with this amazing tool where I'm still liquid. And I'll even talk to the counter side of this too, which is not ideal, but it's reality. You look at COVID. We were 6 years as a company before COVID happened. And then, COVID happens, you got loss of income, furlough, whatever, maybe even deceased, right? And, people are like, well, how does this work in a situation like that? Because you're only talking about when you're thriving and making money, but what happens when you need to survive? Well, think about it in the mortgage world. Because I always ask the question when they're like, yes, it's got to be risky in the event that happens. So like, well, let's dive deeper. Think about it. In the mortgage world, what happens if you lose your job or you lose income? In the mortgage world, it's if anybody watched Goodfellas, Joe Pesci, or maybe that's Casino. Yeah, Joe Pesci, F you pay
Yep.
me. That's the mortgage. That's the mortgage lender. The first of every month, I don't care. F you, pay me. I don't care what your problems are. Pay me. Well, when you go through the strategy and now you're a couple years in, your balance is getting suppressed more and more. Every month that you're dumping your income in there and your cash flow positive, you got a margin between your income and expenses, your balance is evaporating quickly. Well, in the event that you lose your income, do you want a lower balance or higher balance? I want a lower balance. Okay, well, a mortgage isn't going to provide that, right? Because you can't put 100% of your income into a mortgage. Okay, so you want a lower balance. Well, let me ask this question. On a line of credit, as your balance goes down, your minimum payment goes down with it. On a mortgage, as your balance goes down, it's again Joe Pesci.
Same dollar,
It's the same
same
payment.
payment.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the balance is. It's the same payment. So if you lose your job, your income, do you want a higher payment or a lower payment? Well, I want a lower payment. But here's where the really smart ones will try to get you. But if I don't have any money, any payment is too high. And they're not wrong. That is true. But herein lies the solution. Because it's a line of credit. All right, well, let me frame it this way. Okay, you lose your income. You've paid down your mortgage, right? You've got 300,000 you start off with, you paid down to 150, so you got tons of equity in there. But now you lost your income, you want access to your equity. Well, you got to go back to who to get approved? You got to go back to the bank to get approved. Well, can you get approved if you have no income? No. In the banking world today, in the lending world today, they only give you money when you can prove you don't need it. So you don't have access to it. However, in the line of credit world, years ago you qualified for it. Here's your credit limit, and you can use that till the cows come home as much as you see fit. So you don't need anybody's permission to access it. So when you lose your income, you can say, okay, well, it's going to cost me $4,000 a month to live off of. That's gas, groceries, and all that stuff. But utilities, keeping the lights on, no problem. You take $4,000 from the line of credit because we live in a digital world. This takes seconds for it to happen. $4,000, I'm going to put it over here. Oh, by the way, the bank needs a minimum payment every month for that home equity line of credit. So I'm going to take the minimum payment out. I'm going to sock it right back in. Guess what? They record that as a payment. Your own time. There's no foreclosure. Hence why during COVID, remember the forbearance programs? It was specifically 120 days. We will give you a forbearance program where you don't have to make a mortgage payment for 4 months, 120 days. But guess what you owe us on the first day of the fourth month or fifth month? All of it. Even the portions that you didn't pay. Now think about that for a second. How does that work? Okay, I don't have an income. So do you think I was stockpiling no money that was coming in so that in the fifth month on the first day, I could just give it all to you at once? Well, I mean, if I could do that, I would just been paying you all along. But why did they specifically make it 120 days? Because in the mortgage disclosures, if you're 4 months behind, that's the start of foreclosure. It was to gobble real estate. And they did. From people that were forced to stay home, couldn't go to your job, etc. So yeah, love my country, not so much my government.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. And, I think when talking through this, the action item I really think somebody needs to go do is understand the rate of interest that you're paying on your home, most likely the mortgage. Where is the best place or places that somebody should go try to find that information, assuming they probably don't have that piece of paper sitting on their desk, front and center.
Yeah. Yeah. So one, you could call the mortgage lender. It's going to make them nervous as a rattlesnake, nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Can you tell I'm from Tennessee? So you can ask the mortgage lender. They're going to ask questions as why, but that's okay. Just say, hey, I don't have it. I didn't keep it. I'd like a copy of that. Or the title company that closed you, because title companies have to close these transactions. So the title company would have a copy of it, and they're not going to ask questions. They're just going to be like, yeah, no problem. They keep a record, I think 5 to 7 years or something like that. They have to keep a record of these. So they'll just send you a copy, and here's your loan estimate. And you look at page 3 and determine what your TIP is, your total interest percentage. And you'll very quickly, 100% of people realize my interest rate deceives me. That's not how much interest I'm actually paying.
Yeah. Yeah, go look at that, understand it. There's a lot of things you can deep dive here, but I think the main point I really want to drive home is that, and then Michael, where's the best place for people to go find some more information, learn more about you, the company, Replace Your University as a whole, after they understand that and start playing with some calculators probably.
Well, there you go. The calculator. We have free calculators right there on our website. And heck, I've even had some people like, well, yeah, you got a funky calculator. You programmed it a certain way to. Oh my goodness, you can find this at Navy Federal Credit Union and all this other stuff. They all have these financial calculators. So you go to our website and we have these calculators where you just plug in your situation and it's going to spit out how much money you could save given your income and expense situation. So yeah, replaceuniversity.com. Again, it's just a plethora of free information. You can log on, you can create a user account, you can watch beginner, intermediate courses for 100% for free. And on top of that, you can schedule a consultation with my company 100% for free. And I'll be honest with you, we're going to be completely transparent. And if it doesn't work for you, you'll be the first one to know. Like, look, this isn't a good fit for you, because we have a 98% success rate in the company. So if we allow you to come on board as a client, it's because we have a really high probability of we're going to save you a ton of money. And if it's not the case, we don't want you, because we want to keep a good name.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely agree. I know obviously more than just you in the company. All great guys, great people, great crew. I actually get to spend some time with one of the teammates this summer up in Bar Harbor, Maine, on our RV trips together. So definitely really good people. So again, Michael, thank you so much for the time. You guys watching and listening in, thank you. I appreciate it. I hope you got something out of this. This is one of those things that literally every single day you don't go make a change on here, it is costing you more money. It is costing you more opportunity on the other side. It is costing you. So just go be curious and go learn. I'm not saying you have to do the thing, but I believe on the other side of learning the math, it all of a sudden just makes a lot of sense to go do the thing. And these are the guys that are going to help you. They're going to make it simple, and they're going to make it as easy as it possibly can be to help solve some of these problems, should you be a good fit for the
Yep.
program. So, Michael, again, thank you for the time, sir. I appreciate you, my man.